ask our panelists to come on up, if you will. Oh, two things I forgot to mention. Ambassadors, I want to thank our ambassadors. If you're an ambassador, what the ambassadors do, just like getting groups to come, whether it be a church group, a bridge group, a neighborhood lunch bunch, whatever it might be, when people say, oh, more people need to hear about this, well, you might want to be an ambassador and help spread the word. And so, ambassadors, if you didn't pick up the announcement about next month's seminar, be sure to pick up a few of these. They'll be on the registration table, and if you need more, let me know. I think you have a system worked out with Brielle that you get some of these. So that's up there for our ambassadors. Stand up if you're an ambassador. I want to thank you. Yeah, now some of you are hiding, but anyway, there's some others that just aren't standing up, I think. But we're glad you're doing that. And I want to give a shout out to. In January, we announced the opportunity to participate and walk across Texas. And so we had a lot of people really interested, but then people had conflicts or health or whatever. But we did end up with 2 teams. We have some people here today, a lot are not. Some are on spring break. If you're doing Walk Across Texas with us, raise your hand. You can even stand up, you Walk Across Texas people. And if you didn't get your little sticker out there was a sticker. And there was a flyer. There will be a meetup. It's about midway through April 6th. We'll be sending some more information out to the team. And I have to admit, I used to walk with a friend, and we'd walk a mile and a half or 2 every day. My friend moved, and somehow I didn't walk anymore. And don't know. But Walk Across Texas has at least gotten me walking again. And those of us who have Fitbits or Apple Watches, it's amazing how much walking we do just in our daily routine, but that's not enough. I mean, my goal was still to do my mile or 2 a day, which my teammates are doing 3 and 5, but I'm pleased for my progress. So we'll recognize those people later on too. Okay, now to our panel. As we say, we're always about education and equipping us to always be prepared. We know that as seniors, we're faced with wanting to maintain control. You know, we have other people often wanting to tell us what to do, but we need to maintain our own control, and a large part of that is having information. There's a great book, David Soley, How to Talk to Seniors, I think is the name, but he talks about that and about the dilemmas we face. Last year, we talked a lot about those. One of the dilemmas is, of course, money, financial. And so we built this panel today to help us learn, when we think about money and planning for money, while we worry about the daily part, many of us are more thinking about financial planners and advisors and all that. And we need that. But there's also that daily management of our money. And that's what we're going to learn about today. And as I always say to our panelists and to you, we really appreciate your being here. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And not only are they obviously representing their business, but they're representing the industry and to let us know. So it's not just a sales pitch for them, although they're really good. Learn what people in these areas can do. So let's go ahead and start off, and I'm going to start right here with Shannon, if you'll introduce yourself.
Is this working? It is working.
Hold up close.
Oh, it is working. Oh, okay. Thank you for your patience. My name is Shannon Teff-Janes. I'm a daily money manager. And when people ask, what is that? That's basically a financial administrative assistant, financial concierge. I help people from everything from consulting to maybe they had an illness and they needed to get things kind of reorganized again financially and caught back up, all the way through handling the day-to-day bill paying, account administration, working with the CPAs, the attorneys, the wealth managers, and making sure that you're reaching your goals in that capacity.
You make it sound so easy. We'll come back and find out about that. And I'd just like to do a magic wand. You just take care of it and we don't have to worry about it. And
Yeah.
I think we do have to have some input in to make that all work. And
Oh,
that's
yes,
what we're
quite a
going to
bit.
learn about. Okay, so she's the daily, and I was talking to Shannon earlier. We have care managers, we have move managers, and we have daily money managers that a lot of us are not that familiar with. And you say, I don't need that, I do it fine myself. That's wonderful, keep doing that. Sometime we might need a little help. Or in many of these cases, we say, well, if I had someone just to help me get organized, then I could maintain my own control and independence even longer. So we're going to come back and talk about more of that. So Will, who is one of our educational partners, has been on panels previously. You're talking more about the big picture. What's our common question? Is my money going to last me? Am I going to have enough money, especially for those people looking to move to senior communities? Am I going to be able to manage this? So explain your services.
So, yes, thanks, Virginia. My name's Will Boughton. I'm a trust officer and fiduciary wealth manager for Vera Bank. I'm a fiduciary, which is a little bit different than if you went to a big brokerage house
Are you
or
hearing
something
okay?
like that. So the typical financial advisor is not a fiduciary, and it's just a different layer of things. What it does is we're regulated to a higher standard of duty toward our client's best interest than the typical brokerage model requires. That enables us to serve as trustees, as executors for estates, and as a result, in addition to doing the investment management, the big P financial planning that we are discussing here, the retirement planning, the IRAs, all that stuff, we also really have a focus on estate planning and multi-generational wealth issues where we're working with families over multiple generations to take care of things. So it's a bit more of an expanded relationship than you would typically find. So.
Okay. So I kind of ran that next question in, but now I do want to go back specifically. I'm going to let Shannon start. From your perspective as a daily move manager, what is your response to that very common question? Will I have enough money to last me? I know you could give us many hours of guidance on this, but what's your general response? How will we know?
She knows I talk a lot, so that's why she couches it that way.
It's good.
So I will work very closely with the wealth managers, and when we look at how you spent money in the past, what your commitments are, how you're going forward, we will figure out what they call a run rate. Okay, given your
So
budget,
a run rate.
that's what I call it. I think that's more of a manufacturing term. I think there's probably a different term for that, but it's escaping me right now. But it's basically, how are you spending? What do you have? What are your proposed gains over time in that portfolio? And where is that rubber going to meet that road? What other assets do you have? Is there other assets you can liquidate? What does that all look like? And like I said, that's where I balance in more with the wealth manager and bring them in because they have the larger gain of the portfolio. So.
Okay. So I like that where the rubber meets the road, okay?
Yeah.
The thing in the run rate, think about this. For many of you, you've lived with budgets all your lives, and you can probably identify exactly what percentage of goes for daily living expenses, entertainment, housing, and so on. Others of us, myself, live in this kind of bubble of, well, there's money in my checking account, so I'm okay. There comes a point when that might not be the best plan.
Well, what gets a lot of people isn't everybody thinks, oh, I have the discretionary spending. I spend too much on restaurants and things like that. And certainly that's the case. And I think people need to evaluate their habits. What I've noticed that really throws off the budgets is what I call the unplanned non-discretionary expenses. HVAC goes out, engine blows out in the car, those sorts of things. And I try to work with my clients to model that, saying, okay, according to this, you can throw $9,000 a month for that, in that category. But your HVAC is 15 years old, your car is X amount of years old. We need to model in that, because if we take it out of the wealth manager's pocket that he's managing, well, that's going to change
Everything.
everything. So really, you don't have 9,000 to spend. You have 9,000 of coverage, and some of that may go back into an emergency fund.
So, okay, Will, you want to pick up on that here?
Sure, absolutely. So, I kind of like to divide financial planning into like big P and small p financial planning, both of which are absolutely crucial. On my side of the fence, I'm handling the assets and managing the assets and, making sure that they're being managed appropriately, and we're having conversations about how we're deploying things and how we're organizing things. But it's really, I think, the question of, how's my money going to last? There's not a magic bullet answer to that. There's all these simulators you can do that run these fancy calculations, so on and so forth, but it comes down to choices. Really paying attention to what you've got and what you're working with, and really allocating those into different buckets, right, that are going to be for specific purposes. So we have the liquid assets investment bucket, right? That's your IRA accounts that are invested in the markets, investment accounts invested in the markets. Those liquid assets that are either throwing off income or also kind of growing, and we're drawing off of those. You've got potentially, a lot of folks have rental properties, either commercial or residential, that throw off income. Like, what are your income sources, right? How do those look? As well as we talk about that emergency fund that is so critically important. Things like HVAC, cars, different stuff like that. But also rough market years. The reason we have gains in the markets and the reason that we're able to, have, solid returns over time is also due to the fact that sometimes we don't. And in a year when, oh boy, Mr. Market kind of went off of his medication and he's an angry guy this year, we don't really want to be leaning on that investment account too much. We don't, because the more we take out of it when asset values are down, it's actually a larger chunk than what you're just taking out, because you're also pulling opportunity cost out of it as well. So we want to be able to have those buckets where, okay, we're not having a good year over here, let's lean over here, right? And grab money from over here and let this recover and do its thing, and then we can move on in the future with it, no problem. Doing that type of planning, making sure you've got those choices, and then the little daily choices about how we spend money. And that's why having somebody like Shannon in your life is so important. Or if you're not, going to be completely on it and expert at it yourself, it can save you. It's those small daily choices that really determine what we call our burn rate is, and you got to watch that burn rate. There is that they call the 4% rule, which is kind of a general rule of thumb with investment accounts, which...
So tell us more about the 4% rule.
Yeah, the 4% rule. That's where you say, let's say the average balanced portfolio return is around 5 to 6%, stretched out over time. So the theory is, if you only draw out 4% per year, over time, your principal is going to remain pretty level, right? And it'll last. And then there'll always be something there and something left, and you won't be killing your principal. That holds true. Generally, however, we also have to pay attention to poor years in the market, and I think it's a caveat to that rule that we all have to pay attention to, and that's why prudent planning, making sure that we're planning for bad years and not just, I've got this much money and I can spend this much, it's a little more nuanced than that. So planning is important.
Okay. I muddy these questions because I change them when we're up here. But so I like the idea, be aware the 4% rule is a general guideline. Some of you are saying, but how long am I going to live? And yes, the whole actuarial, we've got people here in our audience today, that's their background. But we plan for that, and you have all your apparatus to help us do that, and apps and programs. Back to the daily part. Or more than daily, but where the rubber meets the road. Do you want to mention your handout now, or when do you want to mention your planning handout?
Oh, I can do that at any time, but I actually have on April 18th a Zoom conference. You're welcome to sign up for it. And what I teach is the Financial Fortress, and that's how to set up your accounts, how to set up your phone systems, different methods of communication to not only make it easier to handle, easier to track your budget, but also help prevent or contain any type of scams or fraud. It's very, very helpful. I employ the same tactics for myself. I employ the same tactics for those folks that are young professionals that I do the services for. So it is not just for retirees or anything like that. So I welcome you to sign up for that. Tell others about it, please.
And again, it's an informational kind of session.
Exactly.
And then in your handout today, you had about your, I love this, oh yeah, Independence Navigator, but what's the one I really liked? Obliviator.
Financial fixer, conqueror of chaos, obliviator of the overwhelming.
This woman can do everything. And I'm still learning to say obliviator of the overwhelming. I'm getting closer there. So,
Oh,
okay.
you meant my handout. I'm
I'm
so
going to
sorry.
steal that word.
That's okay. That's all right. What's that?
I'm going to steal that word.
It's a good one, isn't it? Okay. So yeah, and so I also want to make sure that we don't overlook, and we'll address some of his. Tell us a little bit about your handout.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So I have a handout that's a really rough kind of budget. And I kind of do these a little differently than a lot of budget worksheets. And I break it out into core income, so what is coming in routinely, not what you're kind of lifting from any of your investments, but we're talking Social Security, pension, RMDs, dividends, things like that that are coming in that are separate from anything that you're getting supplemental from your investments. Then the next one is core expenses. And those are non-discretionary. These are recurring. You've kind of locked into them. You need them to kind of live, or it's kind of, you signed up for them in one way or another, if you follow me. And then I have things what I call non-discretionary expenses. They're not very predictable. So those would be like medical bills, co-pays, deductibles. A lot of people forget to save for those things. And the beginning of the year comes up and things get pretty tight because they don't have a reserve for those things. So this kind of makes you go back and look and say, wait a minute, how much have I spent in the past on this stuff? Maybe that's something I need to start thinking about a bit more. Then table 4 is discretionary expenses, your vacations, your restaurants, your social activities, things that are important, but maybe we need to look at them differently depending on your situation. Then I have future plans, new home, car, if you want to pay for a person's college education or contribute towards that. And then table 6 is loans. I like to look at what type of debt you may have. That can be credit card, that can be car loans. You might still have a mortgage, reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage is a little different animal. We'll talk about that some other time. And then basically just sum it all up. So what do you have coming in? What do you have going out that's predictable? And then what's your areas that are a little less predictable that maybe you need to sit down and think about that a little bit more and how that relates. Because you can have an airtight budget, but then if you have all these little, oh, that just happened once. Oh, that just happened once. Oh, well, wait a minute. You have a lot of that. That's not, it's just not happening once. And you need to model that in. And then on the back here, this is a basic model, and that's what I'd be going over on the 18th, is kind of how to set up your accounts and kind of helps with monitoring. Every account has a purpose, and it also helps from fraud. And I can explain that more some other time, too.
Okay, good. I just wanted to, like I say, many of you probably already have this and more detailed budgets. You can probably tell me exactly. Others of us live in a bubble, and we need to take advantage of these resources. So I think that's important. I want to pick up on 2 things that were mentioned. One, fraud. We had our seminar recently about fraud, and from your all's perspectives, fill us in a little bit. How do we protect ourselves from fraud? Let's start with Will. Will, words of wisdom. And it may be directly related or not directly related to your specific field.
Well, in this wonderful, wonderful digital world we live in, good passwords, really good passwords, based on nobody's name, no pet names, birth dates, anything like that.
Not to use those?
No, absolutely not. A phrase that you can remember, generally, something that is almost like a sentence-based phrase, something like that, that incorporates some things that you can remember and type it in, and it might be a little longer to type in, but it's going to be harder to crack. So those are really important things. Services like LifeLock or the credit monitoring services that are going to ping you if somebody is actually trying to gain credit in your name. Monitoring those things closely. It's just something we all have to be doing. Shredding your mail and really getting a really good shredder that not just goes vertically but also horizontally and turns it into confetti. Super important. Don't leave papers laying around. Don't throw them in your trash can. Just basic things like that I think are super important and can go a long way to protect you. With credit, you can also do things like reach out to each credit bureau and say, hey, you write them a letter and say, I want my credit locked until I decide I'm going to get credit, and then you can have them unlock it, do it, and then relock it. It's a little bit of work, but nobody can get credit in your name if your credit's locked. So things like that are incredibly important. And then just watching out for the predators who want to try to get money out of your account from you. Oh, this is so-and-so, and I'm in trouble or something like that. And the text messages that are, your long-lost rich Iraqi uncle, those aren't as common anymore. They've gotten a lot. But the thing is, these guys have gotten so sophisticated with the way they can come after you, and they will seem like completely legitimate. It'll look like it'll be like an email from your bank, and it looks like it's just like from your bank, asking for your account number or something like that so they can verify you. Your bank will never do that. They will never contact you and ask for information. You will always have to contact them. So just being aware, it's almost like having your head on a swivel, and you're in a rough neighborhood. We're in a rough neighborhood. So yeah, heads on a swivel.
And we always think that's going to happen to somebody else, not to us. Or we get kind of aware of the common scams. And then we get in a hurry. And I just discovered we had, I fell victim to, well, it could have been worse, but it was bad enough. But in this case, it was from Geek Squad. I'd had trouble with my computer a couple of years ago, and I had my membership, and it was time to renew, and you get caught up, and you just say, okay, renew. It wasn't Geeks. It wasn't that. It was a scam. I now found out. You know what? The secret, if I would have looked, and I hate to admit this, but when it just said, the logos and all look very authentic, it looks very official, and you just click pay here, or whatever it was. But now, when I went in to ask about it, and they looked, it's a scam, and well, of course it is. If I looked at the email, it was a stupid email. It was a name at Gmail. But that was the fine print. I didn't look at that. So that's my own, and I talk about this stuff. We just got a new car, and I had, a notice about I didn't buy this warranty or whatever, and all these things were going to happen. Called the dealer. It's a scam. So they're everywhere. So we just have to be very forthright about it. And what did you want to add to our enlightening, cheerful conversation?
Two things that I recommend, which I think are really low-lying fruit. Takes a little effort, though. First of all, you need to find a trusted contact. That could be a very good friend. It could be a son or daughter, somebody that you trust that has access. Better yet, they have accountant access, so they can view but not do any transactions, but they can catch some stuff.
Yeah, what are they going to be viewing?
Well, they'll be viewing your accounts. So say, for example, and I'm kind of going through this right now with a client. She got desperately ill, was otherwise just really on top of her game. All of a sudden, bam, okay? She had no power of attorney set up, no nothing set up. She's been ill for many, many months now. Things are piling up. Her and her wealth manager and her brother and I are skinning that FINRA line as best as we can to get her bills paid. And she has capacity, but she doesn't have stamina to be able to go to the banks or sit with her for a period of time to go through stuff. So it has been very, very challenging. So next week when they talk about those documents, listen, do.
Next month.
Very, very important. Another thing, separate your personal from your business transactional. Get another Gmail that is some random set of letters at gmail.com, okay? And have all of your banking stuff go through that. And here's why, is because if you get something now on your personal that's, oh, renew this, or your bank is overdrawn, then you know, wait a minute. That other Gmail account you don't give out except for those banks. It's not a throwaway account, but it's purposeful, so it's separated, okay? And if you want, you can set it that you can have forwards going to somebody that you trust as well. So, more eyes. Those are, and the other thing is whitelist your phone. And what that means is that you only let contacts that are on your phone can reach you. Everybody else either goes to voicemail, or if they're private or block number, they don't even get through at all. That is the only way you're going to combat this AI stuff that's coming on, where they're emulating phone, voices. You have to just whitelist. There's no getting around it. There's no training on it. It's just draw the line and make it stop.
So how do you whitelist?
There are a couple of things. There's ways, if you have a iPhone, there's ways that you can do it in the settings. Supposedly there is an Android. My husband and I have not been able to figure out. He's a software engineer, so I would advise instead getting RoboBlocker. It's like $40 a year, and it works perfectly.
So
Or
there's
RoboKiller, I think is what's called. Sorry.
RoboKiller. Is it really going to get rid of those robocalls?
Yes.
Okay. I need to be taking notes.
It does have a thing where it says just only the people on my contact list come through. Yeah.
And it is interesting because in some of us, when we're trying to call somebody, that can be a real challenge these days. But that's better for it to be that way and to protect us. And many of us, when it comes in, and if someone doesn't answer within, and it's probably a robocall, and I try them. Anyway, it's hard to know, but what to block.
Legitimate calls. So, example, the downside of it is like your physician is going to call, and they're going to call from some PBX system. If they're like with Austin Regional Clinic, you don't know what the phone number is. They can leave a message.
Yeah.
So you make sure your HIPAA tells the office, please leave a detailed message.
I think we're seeing more and more that it's best to have the message and then follow up from there. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. We just have to be careful. All right. Let's see. Any other topic on that one, Will?
I just learned some things. That's awesome.
I'm taking notes too there too. Okay. Let me jump over now. We highlighted Shannon's. I know that they're from Vera Bank, representing asset management. Did you want to highlight any of these in terms of services?
Go through them real quick. So mine are more informational than functional. The first one being this is descriptions of the various services we offer. One of those being the fiduciary and trust services, what we do as a trustee, what we do as an executor, and just the fact that it's available to our clients. Where one of the great things about working with a wealth manager that it's also a fiduciary and has trust powers is, in a situation where you might have a beloved broker and financial advisor at a big brokerage house. Well, at the time, and you might have named their company as the trustee, because a lot of them do have that trust component, but it's centralized somewhere it could be in Dallas, it could be in San Francisco, who knows. At the time that you pass away, that relationship then goes there. And it's not going to be with the local person you've always worked with. So that's the nice thing kind of about a smaller financial institution, bank-based advisor like me, is I run the relationship for as long as I work. So there's that. Advisory services, that one it's really just the different types of advice we give, be it financial planning, be it estate planning and multi-generational planning. That's all available through what we do. And then asset management, which is kind of where the rubber hits the road in terms of, making sure money's going to last. We have to invest wisely, invest appropriately according to what your needs are, both today and tomorrow, and for your family, and crafting a really good investment plan around that is not only wisely planned, but also very efficient, keeping costs, things like keeping costs down, taxes down, things like that. So those are kind of just the main themes that we deal with in what I do.
One time, a question I hear from people or comment is, oh, asset manager, wealth manager, that's for people with lots of money. I don't have lots of money. I have my Social Security and I have some investment. I just sold my house, so I have some money from that. But so I don't really need a big financial planner, do I? I don't need an asset or wealth manager. I don't have wealth, I don't think.
Yeah, that's a common misnomer. So, and it is true that there are, especially some of the very large shops won't look at anybody unless they bring in $5 million or something like that, which is the case a lot. But when a smaller, but also quite robust, more localized institution, we're a lot more flexible. So in our case, my customers kind of start at 250,000 and
How
go
much?
up. 250,000 being kind of the floor for, and that's where we get where it's reasonable to pay someone to help you with these things, and you're going to get value out of it. There are cases where we do things below that as well, where it's just there's a special case, and we will actually provide a value, but we want to make sure we're providing value. And we think that's generally kind of the baseline of where it works. But yeah, people think that trusts are only for the rich. No, not really. Trusts are for anyone who has, let's say, loved ones that, for example, can't handle a windfall today, right? We need to do some things to maybe protect them from themselves a bit, and have a neutral third party kind of holding the purse strings and making sure that everybody, doesn't get a little bit crazy when they get a chunk of money in
When
their
you win the
pocket.
lottery and you win all the money, but then a few years later you're broke.
You're broke. So yeah, having somebody, so that's where, trusts are such a very flexible tool, and it's not about how much money you have; it's about what your needs are. What does your family look like? Is it okay just to pass everything straight along, right? Then a will might be fine, but sometimes it's not. And then there's also tax planning strategies, different things like that. But at the baseline, yeah, it's just what are your needs, and that's the tool you want to use.
You mentioned the point as a general guideline base of 250,000, and then then that makes balance, or I don't know what the right word is, about fees. There is a fee involved, obviously.
Yes.
And I know that there are a lot of us who've come from we are very responsible. We are do-it-yourselfers. I can do this all myself. I don't want to pay that fee. There comes a time, we don't always understand all of it, and the fees can be balanced out by reduction of stress and knowing that everything is secured. So address that, because people say, oh, I don't want to pay him a fee.
Right.
Well, folks,
So one of the beauties of a solid professional manager is we've worked really hard to get good at doing this, right? And asset allocation, which is really just, if we're just talking strictly on investments, right? Asset allocation, which is how you have the money deployed in the markets, like what types of asset, what mix of assets, what's the different numbers of the universe of assets that you go ahead and put your money into, needs to be very carefully calibrated. Because quite simply, you don't just want to go and, I heard this stock is really good, and go buy that, right? You really want to have a careful mix of things, and that's what we do for our clients. So that is worth its weight in gold, because and it's not so much how much money am I going to make on a good market, it's, okay, what's it going to look like when we have a bad year, right? You might do really great when, the rising tide that floats all boats, but then the next year when things get really tough, all of a sudden, it's like it falls off a cliff, right? So our job is to try to manage that and make it the downside as smooth as it can be humanly possibly made. So rather than, should I pay a fee or not pay a fee, is the fee fair? Is the fee a good value compared to other money managers? And it's not just the management fee. It's also, what is the internal cost of this portfolio? Because there's going to be, it's like, if you're hiring a manager, it's like I always say, it's like hiring a manager for your store, right? So is that manager going to buy stock that is appropriately priced, for the shelves? Or are they going to be overpaying for it and shrink your margins? Are they going to be hiring lazy employees that are overpaid? Different things like that, right? So you want to talk to that money manager about, okay, how do you manage money? How do you be efficient with taxes? What does the actual portfolio, because there's always costs in a portfolio, what are those costs? And compare that to the manager too, not just the management fee. Efficiency matters. So.
Okay, important considerations. Okay. I want to switch to Shannon now, and in our conversations in preparation for this, you mentioned about, how do we plan ahead and so we just don't get hit? You mentioned a while ago, the big expense, the HVAC goes out, so on. Give us some more tips. In fact, you can give a shout out to a group you think helps prevent, or,
She knows where I'm going with
yeah, I'm
this.
trying to get her there.
So I think the saying "luck favors the prepared" is very, very important. So one of the things I tell people is like, okay, look around your house. Get somebody that can do an inspection. And like we have Evan here with Golden Home Management, and they'll come into the house. They'll do the routine maintenance and things like that, and then also spot trouble areas. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to get repaired right away, but you better start squirreling away some money for that, setting some stuff to the side. Another thing that people forget about too is proper insurance. So the thing with insurance is that you're trading smaller amounts of money now to defray a larger expense later on. Now, some people have different risk profiles. I respect that. But I see a lot of people, when they're doing their budgets, things get a little tight. What do they cut back on? They back on maintenance, and they cut back on, and they look at insurance as discretionary. And I think those are the two biggest mistakes that people make.
Interesting. And I want, from a realtor, I want to speak to that home maintenance issue. The more we can do to keep things up, I think generally, our HVAC systems, if we have them serviced regularly, we have, we can do, and some people can go overboard, but I recommend that we strongly, especially having our HVAC serviced, and yes, check into Golden Homes Management. And one thing that, there are little things we forget about. And when you're getting ready to sell your home, I know a realtor who can help you, but besides that, we look at inspections, things that are so common. We really could have taken care of them ahead of time and just kind of warded off some of that. Dryer vents. Now, that's not something that we clean out. Thank you, Golden Home. We just had our dryer vent cleaned out last week. Yeah. And be aware of that. And there's safety issues too, when something like that really could possibly lead to fire. But, another related topic to that, when we have services to come in and help us, we're trying to keep people off ladders. I need to do my smoke detector. It's beeping. Hopefully you've got someone who's going to help you with that. I'm never going to fall on that ladder. I know you're never going to fall on that ladder. But that's also what our neighbor thought when they did fall. So we just can't be too careful. So you mentioned things that we plan for. Insurance, and I know there's a lot, that can be a whole nother discussion about long-term care and what it covers and what it doesn't cover. I don't know, can you give us a...
I'm even talking about, like there's, supplemental insurance, AFLAC things, that's more for the younger folks, but even still that kind of can fill in gaps where maybe you don't have a good policy through work and it's a stop measure. Auto insurance, a lot of people forget if you're not driving that much, you can talk to your agent and get a different rating on that vehicle. Or, that vehicle's been sitting here, and I have lots of clients that vehicle's been sitting there for 6 months, they're not really driving anymore, and I sit down with them and I say, well, that's costing you money. That thing, you have to drive the vehicle. If you don't, it's really going to cause a lot of mechanical damage. So look at the things that you have, your lifestyle, what your goals are, and start that kind of downsizing, not just like the downsizing she does, but also what I call like your economic footprint. Because maybe there's just stuff you're not using or doing anymore. well, it's time to simplify your life and maybe cut that out and maybe go into things that more fulfill you.
I like your word you used there, simplify. So often downsizing in a variety across the board, it often conjures a negative, or it's an emotional thing, and it is. But when we think about the goal to simplify, that can really help us. And as I say, I'm struggling with this myself, and how to help people through this. We focus on the stuff, but I know associated with that stuff are a lot of emotions. And, how do we kind of get a handle on that? But it's what's the outcome? But some of us, we need to remind ourselves to enjoy the journey too. I've been going through trying to consolidate photos, and it's like, oh my God, it's overwhelming. There's so many. But yet, when I pull out one and see the neatest picture of my son with his granddad, that's part of downsizing. The memories, but now how can we organize it so we don't have quite so many photo albums or boxes or whatever we are dealing with? But we do have a seminar on letting go. I think it's in August. It's going to focus on that topic. Okay, I want to open this up for questions from the floor. Now, we can't answer my budget situation, or if you have particular personal questions or my asset, whatever, go visit with them at their tables afterwards. Oh, let's see, mic runners. I think, Ash, who are our mic runners today? I know Josie is. Do we have another mic runner? Maybe we have one mic runner today. You'll be okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to let you all share a mic right now. Josie, you want to get that mic? And Amir, I'm close.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. They're going to be from Come for Care and from Care Partners to Caregivers. Okay, if you have a question, raise your hand. And okay, right over here.
Hello, thank you. My question is about wills. Can I ask a question about that?
And know that next month we are going to have an attorney here. Did you say wills or was?
Yes, I just simply need to know if there is somebody available to advise us. Like, I have a will, and it costs a lot to do it, but over the years you have to make changes as people come and go in your life. So will there be somebody to answer questions for us and guide us as to how we can make those changes to our
Yeah,
wills?
they can put that on your yellow sheet too. Good question. So she knows it's kind of for next month, but you all deal with that issue too.
We do. And you should always have a relationship with a good, solid, competent, dedicated estate planning attorney. You don't go to a dentist for, a heart exam, for example. So having that relationship in place is really, really crucial. Because they can really guide you through what the decisions are, what needs to be changed at what time. And I always say, as a rule of thumb, every 5 years, sit down with your attorney, have them go through, let's talk through things, what's changed, what's not. Or yes, there's also triggering events, right? Any major change in your life, yeah, you got to update your estate plan. Always absolutely critical. Thank you.
So yeah, especially if someone else on your wills passed away, you got to make an adjustment there. Okay, so yeah, but come back next month for more information too. Other questions? Yes, right here, Barbara.
Can I just make a comment? When they were talking about,
Go ahead and give her the mic.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I always talk so loud anyway. I was just wanting to make a comment that when you were talking about looking at computer stuff and knowing whether it's valid or not valid, if you look at the screen behind right here, and you look at the top and you see where it says staying in control daily, you see that A, the way that A is written? Okay, go further down where it says panelist and look at Vera Bank. Look at the A at the end of Vera. The A on the end of Vera is the way you're going to see it legitimately on the computer. If you see it in an email or in something that you get that is in that format, in the daily format, that's not a true site that you want to respond to.
So a lot of these branding type things, and some will be a little twist or a different font. So yeah, and that has to do with font style. But So we're going to be looking at Vera. Now, I don't know if we use the right format for Vera Bank. Is that the A, the way you do it?
Yeah, it's just one word.
Yeah, well,
But otherwise, yeah.
I can't think what the name of that
Yeah.
font is, but always, we just be really careful with that. Okay. Cheryl.
When you change passwords on like a series of accounts, do you have a unique password for every single account?
So you
And
have
how do you keep track of them?
Okay, so
and there are
I'm,
two questions there. Okay.
yeah. So there's a lot of password protectors. 1Password, I'm a fan of LastPass. There's a whole bunch of them, and I recommend that you use them. My recommendation, though, and even though it sounds counterintuitive, turn off the autofill on them, because you'll end up accidentally overwriting passwords with it. Just life pro tip, ask me how I know this. So there's some convention on that. Some people say get a nice robust 10, 12 character and then core password and then append to it. So some random thing, bank, some random thing, financial advisor, something like that. I disagree. I think everyone should be unique. As part of my protocol with anything where I'm setting up client accounts or helping them with that, I do a minimum of 20 characters or whatever the max is for the client for that institution, and that's in a password protector. So I'm of the opinion that if they get a hold of they go onto Chase or Vera Bank and they need to log in, it's easier to get launch codes than it is to get your stuff, because at that point you're really being unhackable. To her point, which is kind of related to this, which is the A and things, and that's what they call phishing, okay? This is why I want you to turn off the autofills, okay? Because they do have some technology that even if it fills it, it will count that as a hit and grab it. It's very, very insidious, and even though you don't think that's going on, it is, so turn off the autofills. More important, don't even get to those sites. So there is a software, it's actually for families managing young kids, but guess what, it works, called Custodio, Custudio, and it won't even let you go to these sites. It's like a whitelisting. It's for your desktop, laptop, cell phone, and it's really, really robust. But just get over the fact that it's for kids, but it does work. Go figure.
Thank you.
Now that you have us freaked out about passwords, so yeah. Okay, Reg.
Most of the financial institutions I deal with now use a two-step process. You enter, a password, and they send you back a code that you have to enter in. Is that secure enough?
That's
Two-step authentication, is that?
well, okay, so it all depends on your downstream, okay? So what I do with this is I will actually set up a Google Voice account for my clients and that separate Gmail that I told you about that was kind of like all random characters. And that two-factor then goes to that separate Gmail account, that separate Google Voice. And that Google Voice account's never shared with anybody. So it's like almost a triple secret. The other thing I like is they also have those authenticators. I like those even better, but a lot of people find those hard to use. So yeah, the two-factor is better. It's better that if you use maybe a different phone number, or if you are sharing passwords, say with one of your children because they're kind of helping you, you want to make sure that they can do the two-factor at the same time, and it's one way that then they can do the two-factor at the same time. I do not advise sharing passwords for financial institutions. However, sometimes you just have to. And it's unfortunate. Bank, not going to get on the banks too much, but you guys are not adapting to the changes in that stuff as much as we'd like to see.
Other questions? Yes?
What about facial recognition?
Facial recognition.
True story. I have a client right now. She had that medical situation, lost 75 pounds. Now it doesn't recognize her. And a certain bank that is of America is very, very insistent on this technology. Is even telling her she might have to get a new iPhone, and I'm kind of pushing back saying ADA, you can't have people buying phones because your stuff doesn't work. Wow. So yeah, facial recognition's great. I like the fingerprint better because it's not a function of you losing weight.
So many considerations. Okay,
Who would have thought?
that's right. Other questions? Right up here, Catherine. Did you hear?
Yes, tax loss harvesting, we call that. And that's a
Wait,
tax.
what are we talking?
It's called tax loss harvesting. It's a portfolio management practice we use very frequently. And that's kind of based on the fact that in any given year, certain parts of your portfolio may do great, certain parts might not. You might have certain assets that are actually at a loss for the year within your portfolio, even if your portfolio is overall up. So we call it harvesting capital gain losses. So what we would end up doing in some of those cases where we have that opportunity of certain parts of the portfolio being down, rotating those into a different asset, selling this asset, thereby we're locking in that loss from a tax standpoint, and then buying another very similar asset that does the same job in the portfolio, right? It does the same function. So what we've now done is if there's any positive capital gains that have resulted at the end of the year, you can then apply those losses to those gains and thereby bring down your tax burden. And that's sometimes why it's worth paying an asset manager to do those things, because the savings can actually honestly be much larger than the fee you pay in any given year. So thanks for that question. That's a great one.
Okay. Other questions that people have?
I have something to add that's similar to that. So along that line too, and this is why you need to have a good CPA and a wealth manager working with you. If you're getting a lot of, you're dipping into your investments that are subsidizing your lifestyle, which you should, you're retired, right? Talk with your wealth managers and your CPAs to see if you can up the tax withholdings on your Social Security and maybe some other investments that are done automatically. Because when they go to liquidate something, say they're doing a regular distribution to you, and they're doing a withholding, depending on what they're distributing out of, they may have to liquidate a little bit more in order to do the taxes out. So this way you're having something else hold those taxes out and less is being liquidated to deal with that. So that's an additional tax savings type of thing that you can work through.
This always reminds us, yes, we need professionals to guide us on this. I also know that for some of us who are going, oh my goodness, this is so much information. Am I going to remember? Did I take the right notes? Just remember that our seminars are all recorded. It'll be up online next week. So if you want to go back and pick out particular points or get down things you didn't get today or share with friends, it will be available. Let's see if we have one more question. Any more? Okay. Yes, there we can. Don. Here, let Josie give you a mic.
It's nice to be able to gift highly appreciated stock to a grandson in my case. It worked out very well.
Okay, so he's just raising it as part of an asset management. It could be gifting. Going into that, then I thought of a related question.
Absolutely. Yeah, gifting appreciated assets, it can be a very effective tool in getting things out of your estate. For example, there's a little over $14,000 a year that you can actually gift in any given year without even triggering the gift tax. But you also have what's called a lifetime exemption, which is actually pretty much equal to your estate tax exemption. It's like 12.5 million in your lifetime that you can actually gift out of your overall estate and not incur a tax burden. So you can get those highly appreciated assets out, provide that blessing to that family member, that friend, whoever it is, or organization as well. There's myriad different ways you can do this and harvest, tax benefits from these things. And also, there's people who really do need to get the size of their taxable estate down, and it's a wonderful tool that is available in the tax code to do those things. Charities have a special exemption as well. I have a lot of clients that do a lot of gifting to charities, and they can gain both present day and future tax benefits on their estate from that. So,
And some people can use their money, well, it's a charity, but like the churches in, and have that set up so it goes directly into the.
absolutely. So when you set up a trust, for example, it doesn't just have to be a relative or that can be a beneficiary. It could be a 501c3 nonprofit. It could be a church. Any tax exempt organization, you can set up a charitable beneficiary. Some people even set up separate charitable trusts that are just for those specific purposes within the planning process. So it's just not, there is so much flexibility with how you can do things in terms of taking care of the things that are near and dear to your heart, as well as protecting family members and having a lifetime legacy that benefits you on a tax basis as well. So it's good.
Okay.
Great thing to add. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank our panelists. Thank you. I'm going to let you go back to your table so you'll be there because there are going to be lots of people with lots of questions. So, so thank you all very much. Thank you. And I especially want to thank them for taking time to be here, as well as our partners. These are all business people, and they carve out time to be here, so we'll let you all be over there. I want to thank you for taking time to be here. And I know for many of us, our minds are spinning. We find that one thing that and I'm going, oh my gosh, passwords. But it's so easy to use the recent trip or our cat or, I don't know, you all have challenged me. We should have put that on one of the action steps. Look at your passwords. But anyway, we all are in different places and see different things we need to work on. Most importantly, it's be aware, plan ahead. And I think what's great, we have families here. We have parents and children together and children here looking out for parents. And that's what, we're all about, working together on that. So remember, see, next month we'll be talking about, we had an introduction to our one about legal documents and more. And then just after that, we'll have our shredding event. And so for those of you who are doing Walk Across Texas, keep up the walking, and thank you for doing that. And I want to again thank you for being here, and we'll be around to answer any questions that you might have. So have a great day.